The silence of space was never truly silent. It carried the weight of fear, the echo of past wars, and the heartbeat of entire civilizations trying to survive. And in that silence, 500 alien warships moved like a dark metal storm. Their engines glowed blue, long shadows stretching across the stars. Inside the command ship, hundreds of officers watched every screen with growing excitement. They believed the day would be easy. They believed the day they would capture a single human, just one, and end the fear that had been spreading across their empire. The fleet commander, Admiral Korvac, stood tall on the bridge. His voice echoed as he spoke to his officers. "Remember," he said, "he is only one human, nothing more, a weak creature from a weak world." But even as he said this, his hands were shaking slightly. He hoped no one saw it, because deep inside, he did not believe those words. For months, stories had been spreading across the galaxy. Strange stories, impossible stories. Entire pirate fleets found dead without wounds. Systems shutting down without warning. Secret bases destroyed overnight. And every time, witnesses claimed the same thing. One human did it, alone. Korvac never trusted rumors. But when the Emperor himself ordered all 500 warships to hunt the human, he knew the rumors were not rumors anymore. The scanners beeped loudly. "Admiral, we found him," one officer called out. A small escape pod, only one life form inside. A wave of laughter spread across the bridge. "That is our threat. This is the human everyone fears. Capture him while he sleeps." The Admiral did not laugh. He stared at the pod on the screen. It was floating silently, almost peacefully, in the middle of empty space. No weapons, no signals, no movement. Just one human, alone. Korvac whispered to himself, "Why do I feel this is not right?" He ordered the closest warship, Warship Vraction, to bring the pod aboard. As the soldiers moved toward the pod, a strange cold feeling spread across the ship. The temperature dropped slightly. Lights flickered. One soldier felt something like pressure on his chest. But they ignored it. Humans were harmless. Or so they believed. The pod opened with a soft hiss. Smoke drifted out, covering the floor. The soldiers pointed their weapons forward and stepped inside. And there, sitting calmly in the darkness, was a human. He looked young, not strong, not dangerous. His hands rested on his knees like he was meditating. His breathing was steady. His eyes were closed. But what shocked the soldiers was not his calmness. It was the metal cuffs around his wrists. They were not alien cuffs. They were human cuffs, the strongest kind, designed to hold the most violent criminals. And they were broken, completely broken. The metal was torn apart like thin paper. No human was strong enough to do that. One soldier whispered, This cannot be real." Before they could speak further, the human opened his eyes. They were not angry eyes, not afraid. They were calm, extremely calm, too calm. He looked at the soldiers as if he was studying them, as if he knew everything about them already. The soldiers felt something strange in their minds, as if someone was gently knocking inside their thoughts. No one moved. Then the ship suddenly shook. Alarm screamed. Power loss on Deck 2. Engine 3 shutting down. Shields offline. We are losing all systems. The soldiers panicked. What is happening? Who is attacking us? There was no attacker, no enemy fleet. Nothing was firing at them. Their massive warship, built to destroy planets, was dying from the inside, and the human was still sitting, still calm, still watching. The soldiers slowly stepped back, fear rising in their eyes. The lights flickered again. Small objects began to move across the floor without anyone touching them. Weapons trembled. One soldier dropped his blaster because it became too hot to hold. The human finally spoke. Only 2 words. Soft, calm, but terrifying. "You're late." The soldiers froze. Late? Late for what? Before they could ask, every screen on the warship turned black. The engines shut off completely. The ship drifted in space, powerless. The Admiral saw all this from the flagship. His heart dropped. No, "No, this is not possible," he whispered. "One human cannot do this." But the human had not used any weapon, had not attacked, had not moved. His simple presence was enough to shut down one of the galaxy's strongest warships. A chilling thought entered the Admiral's mind. If one human can do this, what happens when he decides to fight back? He turned to his officers and shouted, "Bring him to the flagship. Now! I want to see him myself." But even as he gave the order, he felt a weight in the air, a warning, a pressure, as if the stars themselves were whispering, "You made a mistake. You should have never come for him." And for the first time in his long life, Admiral Korvac felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Real fear. The soldiers who captured the human tried to act brave, but every step toward the flagship felt heavier than the last. It was as if the air itself did not want them to bring him aboard. The hallways flickered. The ship's walls vibrated with quiet static. Even the lights dimmed whenever he passed by. But the human didn't move aggressively. He didn't try to escape. He didn't even lift his head. He just walked calmly, almost peacefully, with his hands still in the broken cuffs. That calmness frightened the soldiers more than any weapon. Inside the flagship's highest security zone, Admiral Korvac watched the screens with tightening fear. He saw the human walking slowly through the corridors, surrounded by armed guards. Something inside the Admiral whispered, "This is not a prisoner. This is a warning." He didn't say that out loud. One of the officers approached him. "Admiral, his energy levels are strange. He has no weapons, no armor, but the ship reacts to him like he is a power source." "Impossible," Korvac said, but his voice lacked confidence. The officer swallowed hard. "Sir, the ship is losing small systems every time he passes a deck. Lights, doors, gravity stabilizers. It's like he's draining the ship." Korvac stared at the screen. "Humans cannot do that." The officer whispered, "Then he is not a human." The Admiral didn't respond. The guards escorted the human into Cell 0, the most secure chamber on the flagship. The door was thick enough to survive the explosion of a sun. The moment it sealed shut, everyone exhaled in relief. But their relief didn't last long. Inside the cell, the human sat down on the cold floor. He placed his hands lightly on his knees. Then he smiled. Not a big smile. Not an evil smile. Just a knowing smile. A smile that said he had been here before. A smile that said the cell would not hold him. One guard whispered outside the viewing window, "Why is he smiling? Shouldn't he be afraid?" Another guard replied, voice shaking, "He knows something we don't." They were right. The Admiral called for immediate research. "Bring me every file on humans, every secret project, every rumor, everything." The officers rushed to obey. But when they opened their databases, they found something shocking. Every file related to humans, especially human experiments, special units, or military mutations, was corrupted, as if someone had erased them, or blocked them, or someone didn't want the galaxy to know. One officer shouted from the data terminal, "Admiral, there is one file fragment left." Korvac rushed over. The damaged screen flickered, showing only two readable words. Project Sentinel. The Admiral felt his throat tighten. He had heard that name once. Only once. In a classified meeting years ago. A project that was never confirmed. A project that should not exist. A project involving humans who were different, not stronger, not faster, but something else. Something that could learn faster than any machine. Something that could adapt faster than any species. Something that could evolve under extreme stress. Turning fear into power. Korvac whispered, "Oh no, not this. Not him." The officers stared at him. "Admiral, what is Project Sentinel?" Korvac looked at the cell screen. At the human sitting so calmly. At the broken cuffs beside him. At the soft smile on his face. "He," Korvac said, voice shaking, "is what happens when humans stop being prey." Suddenly, every warship in the fleet shuddered. Lights flickered. Engines paused. Gravity destabilized for 2 seconds. It was small, barely noticeable, but enough to terrify every officer. Because it happened on all 500 ships at the exact same moment. Officers yelled across the bridge. Was that an attack? No enemy detected. Then why did every ship shake? The admiral looked at the cell screen again, and his heart froze. The human in the cell was no longer sitting. He was standing now, slowly lifting his head, as if he could hear every alarm, every officer's heartbeat, every whisper across 500 ships. He opened his eyes. They were not glowing, but they were too calm, too controlled, too aware. He whispered something, too soft for any microphone to catch. Yet every guard felt the meaning inside their bones. The admiral leaned in closer to the screen. The human looked straight at the camera, straight at him, as if distance meant nothing. And he said, softly, "You should not have brought me here." The flagship's long metal halls had never been this quiet. Soldiers walked fast, eyes down, gripping their weapons tightly, even though they knew their weapons had already failed against him. No one wanted to admit it, but everyone felt the same heavy pressure in the air. The human was not doing anything, and that was what terrified them most. Inside the detention chamber, 12 alien guards stood in a wide circle around him. They were elite soldiers, trained for war, trained to fight monsters. But none of them had ever trained to face a human like this one. He sat on the cold metal floor with his back straight and eyes closed, as if he were sitting in a peaceful garden, not a warship carrying 500 vessels worth of soldiers. No restraint, no chains, nothing holding him. Yet none of the guards dared to take a single step forward. One of the younger guards whispered, "Shouldn't he be doing something?" The senior guard shook his head quickly. "No, you do not want him to move. You do not want him to think. Stay quiet." But the young guard could not understand. This human was sitting still, breathing slow, almost peaceful. His hair fell slightly over his forehead. His hands rested gently on his knees. He looked like a monk, not a threat. "How can one man frighten an entire fleet?" the guard whispered. Then something happened. Without opening his eyes, the human spoke in a soft voice. "You're asking the wrong question." The guards froze. His voice was calm, clear, steady, but it felt like the sound traveled straight into their minds, like it didn't come from his mouth at all. The young guard swallowed hard. What question should I ask?" The human finally opened his eyes. The lights in the room dimmed instantly, as if the ship itself reacted to him. He looked directly at the young guard and said, "You should ask who you are truly hunting." A cold shiver ran through every soldier. The young guard stepped back. His legs trembled. His heart beat so fast it felt painful. We are hunting you," he said. The human tilted his head slightly. "No, you are chasing the echo of a warrior leaders do not understand." The guards looked at each other. Echo? War? What was he talking about? Before they could ask, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention! All officers report to command bridge. The admiral demands a full lockdown. The human is now classified as Omega level threat. Omega level, the highest classification in their empire, reserved for cosmic disasters, black hole anomalies, world-ending events. Never for a man." The guards looked back at him. He was still sitting in the same calm position, but now his eyes were open, and they were not calm anymore. They were ancient, deep, focused, knowing, as if he had lived through wars no alien could even imagine. He whispered again, almost gently, "You brought 500 warships for one human, but you still do not understand." A low vibration shook the floor. Every soldier gripped their weapon harder. What do we understand?" the senior guard asked. The human closed his eyes once more and said, "You're not here to capture me. You're here to witness what happens when humans adapt." The lights turned blood red. Sirens began screaming in every corridor. The ship's AI voice repeated, "Warning, unknown signal spreading across all decks. Unknown origin. Evacuate critical areas." The guards turned in panic. Then they heard something even worse. Something impossible. The other 499 warships were calling for help, all at once. Static, screaming, systems crashing, power falling. No enemy in sight. No weapon fired. No attack detected, just one signal pulsing through space. A human life signature. And it was not coming from the prisoner. It was coming from every ship at the same time. The senior guard whispered in horror, "This is impossible. There's only one human." The human opened his eyes again and said, "That's what you think." The admiral had seen war. He had seen planets burn, fleets fall, and civilizations collapse. But he had never seen anything like this. Every screen on the flagship showed the same impossible image. All 499 warships transmitting the same human life signature. The exact same one as the prisoner on board. As if one human was standing on every ship at the same time. The bridge officers kept shouting, "This must be a sensor glitch." "No, sir, the signals are real. How can one human be in 499 places?" But the admiral wasn't listening. He felt something else. Something heavy. Something old. Something intelligent. It felt like the ship itself was watching him. He looked at his first officer slowly. "How long before whatever this is reaches us?" The officer whispered, "Admiral, it already has." The lights above them flickered, then dimmed, then died. The entire flagship fell into darkness. And in that darkness, no one heard the engines. No one heard the shields power up. No one heard the weapons calibrate. Instead, they heard footsteps. Soft, slow, human footsteps. But the prisoner was still locked in the detention chamber, or so they thought. The admiral snapped, "Locate the human. Now." The officers' hands shook as they checked the scanners. "Sir," one of them whispered, voice breaking, "the human is everywhere." The admiral grabbed the officer by the collar. "What does that mean?" "Speak." The officer stuttered. "His life signature. It's on every deck, every hallway, every system. It's like he's inside the ship." The admiral stumbled back. No human could do this. No species could do this. Then the emergency lights switched on, glowing a cold blue. An entire bridge gasped, because someone was standing in the center of the room. The human. But that was impossible. The human was still in the detention chamber. They had camera feeds show him sitting calmly. Yet here he stood, silent, still, and impossibly real. His eyes were open now. But they were not the eyes of a normal man. They glowed faintly, reflecting the blue emergency lights. The admiral whispered, How are you here?" The human didn't answer. Instead, every console around the bridge turned on by itself. Screens flashed. Maps opened. Warship diagrams revealed vulnerabilities. Access codes unlocked one by one like falling dominoes. The officers backed away. The ship wasn't being hacked. It was responding to him, obeying him. The admiral tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "What are you?" The human finally looked at him, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with disappointment. "You think I am the threat," he said softly, "because you do not know what is coming." The admiral felt cold inside his bones. "Coming from where?" he whispered. The human stepped toward the large command window. He raised one finger. The stars outside distorted, bending, twisting, pulling to a point that was not there seconds ago. A dark ripple appeared in space. A tear, a wound, something massive moved behind it. The human spoke again, voice calm, steady, terrifying. "You should not have hunted me. You should have prepared." The admiral couldn't breathe. What is that?" The human's eyes dimmed, and he finally answered. The enemy humans were created to stop. And the flagship shook violently as something began to emerge in the Terran space. Something ancient, something enormous, something their empire had never seen. The Terran space kept growing, not like a normal portal, not like a weapon, more like a wound, a ripped piece of the universe trying to heal but failing again and again. Every alien across all 500 ships watched it with frozen faces. No one spoke. No one breathed too deeply. Fear moved like cold water inside their chests. Something was trying to come through. Something big. Something old. But it wasn't pushing through with force. It was pulling reality toward itself, like gravity mixed with hunger. On the flagship bridge, alarms rang nonstop, but the officers could not even move to silence them. Their eyes were locked on the creature forming in the tear. It was not one shape. It kept shifting, becoming something with wings, then tentacles, then sharp angles like broken metal, then smoke. It was not a living thing. It was a memory trying to become real again. The Admiral's voice finally broke the silence, trembling. Has any species ever recorded this? The science officer whispered, "No, Admiral, because nothing living should be able to record and survive." The human had not moved. He stood calm, watching the creature with no fear in his eyes. His stillness made the aliens even more terrified. The Admiral forced himself to speak to him. "You said humans were created to stop these things. How? Humans have no such power." The human finally turned. His expression was not pride, not anger, not ego. It was sorrow. "You don't understand humans," he said softly. "You understand their bodies, not their evolution." The Admiral swallowed. "What evolution?" The human raised his hand slowly and placed it on the control console. The entire flagship responded instantly. Engines roared alive. Weapons activated. Shields strengthened to levels impossible for alien tech. Officers stepped back. He wasn't controlling the ship. He was syncing with it. The human continued, voice low, steady. "There was a time when humans were ordinary, weak, simple. But war changes species, especially when the war is not against flesh, but against what lies outside reality." The Admiral blinked. "Outside reality? What does that mean?" The human didn't answer, because something else began happening. The creature in the tear stopped shifting. It began looking at the fleet, not with eyes, with awareness. And every alien in every warship felt the same thing at the same moment, a presence inside their minds. Searching, digging, testing. Some soldiers dropped their weapons. Some screamed. Some fainted. The human, however, simply closed his eyes as if the presence was nothing more than a gentle breeze. The Admiral grabbed the command chair for support. "If this thing kills us, why are you still here? Why did you not run?" The human opened his eyes again, calm, steady, focused like someone who had seen this many times. "Because humans don't run," he said. "They adapt." The ship shook violently. But the creature was not attacking the fleet. It was attacking him. The Admiral looked around in confusion. No ships are being hit. The shockwave is centered on the man. Why? Why him? The human stepped forward. The creature in the tear reacted instantly, its shape bending toward him. Like a predator sensing a rival, the human spoke in a voice quieter than a whisper, yet every alien heard it. "It remembers me." A chill spread across the bridge. Remembers him? How could something from outside the universe remember one human? The Admiral whispered, "Were you really?" For the first time, the human gave an answer that carried both truth and fear. "I am the last survivor of the First War, the only one they could not consume, the only mind they could not break." The tear widened violently, like the creature was angry. The Admiral staggered back. "What war? When was this?" "Humans have no record of—" "They erase your records," the human interrupted. "They erase your memories. They erase your fear so you grow again." The Admiral felt cold all over. Grow into what? The human finally looked at him with an expression that felt ancient and powerful. Into what they fear most. Suddenly, every single warship engine shut off. The creature's shadow expanded across the entire fleet. Every ship in the fleet went silent. Not damaged, not destroyed. Just silent. Engines dead. Weapons frozen. Shields locked. Lights dim. Like the entire fleet was holding its breath. In the center of that massive stillness, the creature from the tear expanded. Its shadow stretching across the warships like a dark hand ready to close around the human. The Admiral trembled as he looked at the man standing calmly on the bridge. "You said it came for you. Why? Where are you to this thing?" The human didn't look away from the creature. His voice remained soft, steady, terrifying in its calmness. "I am the one that escaped." The bridge officers stared in confusion. "Escaped? From what? From where?" But before they could ask, a pulse of dark energy hit the flagship. Not like a weapon, not like a blast. It felt like gravity mixed with thought, pressing into their minds, bending their memories, scraping their fears. The Admiral shouted, "Shields up, full power to." But nothing responded. The human closed his eyes. The dark energy swirled around him like a storm recognizing an old enemy. And then, for the first time in the entire story, the human showed pain. He fell to one knee. The entire ship screamed with alarms as if it felt his weakness. The Admiral stepped forward in shock. "You can be hurt." The human raised a hand slightly, signaling silence. His voice was weak but controlled. They learned they adapted too. Fear spread like fire inside the bridge. If this creature had adapted to resist him, then the galaxy had no hope. The creature's voice echoed, not out loud inside every mind. "Return what is ours." The Admiral gripped his head, crying out in agony. Every officer fell to the floor. Every soldier on every ship screamed in terror. But the human lifted his head slowly. Blood ran from his nose, but his eyes were steady. He answered the creature with a whisper, "You had your chance." The creature surged again, a wave of psychic force so strong that hundreds of aliens collapsed unconscious instantly. But the human stood up, barely, shaking, breathing hard, yet standing. The Admiral stared in disbelief. How are you resisting that? No mind can survive that pressure." The human looked at him with a faint, broken smile. "No mind born in this universe." The Admiral froze. Not this universe? Then what was he? Before he could ask, the creature began forming a shape, its shadow extending tendrils toward the flagship. Metal bent, windows cracked, deck plates trembled. The human turned toward the Admiral. "Your fleet cannot survive this. Your weapons cannot hurt it, but you can still live, if you trust me." The Admiral whispered, "How? Tell me how." The human placed his hand on the command console. Every ship in the fleet suddenly flickered with energy, like something had passed through them. The officers panicked. What was that? Did he attack the fleet? But the Admiral understood. He was linking them, sharing something. His voice came through the bridge speakers, not loud, but everywhere. "I am giving your ships part of my mind. Not memories, not power, but resistance." The alien officers stared in shock. The fleet scanners confirmed it. Every warship systems were stabilizing. Shields were rising again. Weapons were slowly coming online. Engines sparked with new energy. It was impossible, but it was happening. The Admiral stepped closer. "You're merging your consciousness with 500 ships. That will kill you." The human wiped the blood from his nose and whispered, "It won't kill me." He looked toward the creature, eyes glowing now with something ancient. "It will wake me." The creature shrieked, its shadow ripping across space in rage. The flagship's shields tore like paper. The hull screamed. Tendrils of dark matter entered the bridge like smoke. The officers backed away. Some fainted. Some froze in terror. The human stepped forward, directly facing the creature's invasion. He wasn't standing on legs anymore. He was standing on will alone. "I escaped your world," he said. "I survived your hunger. And now..." His voice deepened, not human anymore. "You face a human who remembers the first war." The creature recoiled. Space bent violently. Stars warped. Gravity twisted. The fleet's sensors read something impossible. The human's life signature was splitting, multiplying, becoming thousands. The Admiral gasped, "He's becoming an army." The creature hissed in the minds of all who could still hear. "No, he is becoming what he once was." The human's life signature kept multiplying. Not copies, not illusions, but echoes of a power he once held. A power that the universe thought had died long ago. Every ship's screen showed the same impossible reading. 1 human, 1,000, 10,000, and rising. The Admiral stared with wide, terrified eyes. What is he becoming? But deep inside, a small part of him knew. He wasn't becoming something new. He was returning to something ancient. The creature from the tear sensed it too. Its form twisted violently. Its shadow recoiled. Its voice shook the minds of every soldier. He cannot be allowed to awaken again. The entire alien fleet felt the creature's fear. Not anger, not hunger, fear of a single human. The human stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by flickering light and echoes of himself flickering across space. His voice was low, almost sad. I did not want to remember this. Humans were meant to grow without this burden. The Admiral took a shaky step forward. What burden? The human turned his glowing eyes toward him, and for a brief moment, he looked almost human again. The burden of being the shield between your universe and theirs. Before the Admiral could speak, the creature attacked. A wave of dark matter, thick as smoke and sharp as blades, surged toward the flagship. The ship's strongest shield shattered instantly. Metal buckled. Glass exploded. The ship was being pulled toward the terror like a piece of paper caught in a storm. Officers screamed. Panels burst into flames. Gravity twisted sideways. But the human did not move. He simply raised his hand. An entire fleet stabilized. Not through engines, not through thrusters, but through his will reaching through every ship he had connected to. The creature screamed, "You do not belong to them. Return to US." The human shook his head. "I belong to everyone who cannot fight you." The creature lunged, its shape forming a gigantic claw of darkness aimed directly at the flagship. The Admiral closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But something else happened. Every echo of the human, every multiplied signature, merged back into him, flooding the bridge with blinding white light. The human's body lifted off the floor, suspended in the air. His voice dropped into a tone no human throat should be able to produce. "You came for what I was, but what I became was never yours." The creature struck. The universe shook, but the strike never reached the flagship, because something stood in front of the claw, a shape of light. A human shape, then another, and another. Thousands of human silhouettes made of pure energy formed a barrier in front of the fleet. Each echo a memory of what he once was. The Admiral whispered in awe. He's not fighting alone. The human's real body lowered its head. No human ever has. The echoes pushed the creature's claw back, bending the shadow, forcing it away from the terror. For the first time, the creature cried out in despair. "You cannot close the gate. You are not who you were." The human stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with ancient weight. "You're right. I am not who I was." He placed both hands together. The entire fleet felt a vibration, like the universe inhaled. "I am something new." A beam of light burst from his chest, shooting directly into the tear. The creature shrieked, its form dissolving, unraveling as the tear began to collapse. The Admiral shielded his eyes, shouting, "What are you doing? You'll die." The human smiled, soft, human, warm, the smile of someone who finally remembered who they were meant to be. "I'm sending them back." The tear folded in on itself with a thunderous roar, 1,000 stars screaming as the universe healed. The creature let out one last cry. "We will return." The human whispered, "Then humanity will be waiting." The tear closed. Silence. For a moment, the fleet floated in still space, unsure if they were alive or dreaming. Then the human collapsed. The Admiral ran to him, catching him just before he hit the floor. His eyes were dim now, his breath slow. Are you alive?" the Admiral asked, voice breaking. The human smiled weakly. "I told you," he whispered. "One human can be a warning." He looked toward the stars, or a shield. And then he went still, not dead, not alive, something in between, something becoming.